Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martisiute, and I'm a policy analyst here at the European Policy Centre. I'm delighted to welcome you all to EPC Thought Leadership Forum, which is an exclusive series that brings top decision makers for a frank and honest conversation about European defence and security. We aim to challenge conventional thinking, generate clarity of thought, and spark ideas by inviting thought leaders to bring authentic and implementable perspectives to the table. And it is my honor to welcome Dr. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann and her team. Dr. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann has been a member of the European Parliament since last year, 2024. She's the chairwoman of the Security and Defence Committee, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and a substitute member of the Industry, Research and Energy Committee. Before being elected to the European Parliament, she was a member of the German National Parliament for 7 years and the chairwoman of its Defence Committee from 2021 to 2024. Very warm welcome. To kickstart this forum, let me say a few words. Pacifism in times of war invites weakness and emboldens our adversaries. Europe and NATO have long been confronted with a major war and multiple crises in and around their territory. Russia's war against Ukraine, infrastructure attacks, cyber attacks, GPS spoofing and jamming, forced migration, and the list could go on. The national security authorities, including in Germany and the UK, estimate that Russia might be ready for aggression against NATO by 2027, 2030. This means that effectively the EU and NATO are in a pre-war situation with Russia and share wartime urgency and responsibility to act. In the face of such threats, let us not take for granted the fact that we are blessed to not have missiles raining over our heads like it is in Ukraine. We are fortunate to be free and not to experience the horrors of war. And I say this because I was born in Russian-occupied Lithuania, who paid a very high price for freedom before joining the EU and NATO. And there is a high risk that this painful history of the Baltic states might repeat. Ukrainians are already sacrificing their lives for freedom, but the fundamental question is this: how is Russia assessing the readiness of Europe and NATO to respond to war in Ukraine and prepare for a bigger war in Europe? As it currently stands, EU's and NATO's civil military readiness does not match the threats. Europe and NATO still does not have a unifying strategy towards Ukraine, which puts us at risk. NATO and Europe would absolutely need Ukrainians for our own defense and deterrence. How the Parliament's Security and Defence Committee is strengthening EU's rearmament, what more can be done to stop Russia's aggression, and what is the role of Germany are some of the questions that we will try to answer today. But first and foremost, please allow me to invite Dr. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann to deliver a keynote speech. Thank you.
Never forget my name. It's not a name. It's a short story. Somebody told me that's true. So it's okay. Now you know. And then because I need a little bit more space. Sorry about it. So okay. So first of all, thank you to the European Policy Centre for inviting me to their thought forum. And it's really great to see so many. I mean, it's sunny outside. It's wonderful to be outside, but anyway, it's great to see you. So many you are here in the room and jointly us virtually. So thank you very much for your interest. In recent days, Russia has escalated its brutal attack on Ukraine, launching hundreds of drones and missiles each night, targeting cities across the country and killing civilians in an effort to break Ukraine's spirit. At the same time, it has become obvious that we can no longer fully rely on the United States as a partner. President Trump has made it very clear that his priorities lie elsewhere. By now, everyone should understand that Europe must take care of its own security, resilience, and future. Europe is responding late, but Europe is responding both at the last NATO summit and in successive European Council conclusions. The transition requires a Team Europe approach to defense, bringing together member states and EU institutions to create a new European system of defense. The defense landscape is very complex, with large amounts of money being spent nationally and now increasing budgets at the EU level. Money is important, very important, but we can only navigate this transition successfully by working together. We need joint capability development, joint procurement, and more coordination amongst our armed forces. So in addition to plugging defense capability gaps identified for many years by NATO and the EDR, the European Defense Agency, we also have to invest in strategic enablers to flagship projects. Strategic command and control, communications, intelligence, satellite assets will allow us to act independently and as a true European pillar in NATO. At this critical moment, the role of the European Parliament's Committee on Security Defense, called SEDE, has never been more important. SEDE is not just a committee that debates policy. SEDE must be the guarantor of transparency and democratic legitimacy. At the heart of our work, it's one simple principle. Decisions that shape a European defense must serve our citizens, reflect their trust, and strengthen Europe's ability to act. In creating a full Security and Defense Committee, the European Parliament is clearly signaling that it will use its full budgetary, legislative, and political scrutiny roles to deliver on the expectations of our citizens for a stronger EU role as a security provider. And last week in Rome, the EU and Ukraine announced Brave Tech EU. And this word brave matters. Just as Ukrainians have shown extraordinary bravery in the face of brutal aggression, we Europeans must now show courage in our decisions, in our investments, and in our legislative work. Brave Tech EU is a bold initiative that goes beyond innovation. It is a political commitment to accelerate defense cooperation, to harness Ukraine's battle-tested technologies, and to build a true partnership between Ukraine's defense industry and our own. Brave Tech EU is not symbolic. It is strategic. It says clearly, we will not just stand by, but will do all we can support Ukraine on the battlefield. We will amp Ukraine's innovation into the future of Europe's defense industry. These political choices reflect the same ambition behind our legislative work. Building on the white paper on European defense and the Rearm Europe plan, we are shaping a framework that makes Europe stronger and more ready. The defense omnibus is another crucial step. We cannot allow bureaucracy to hinder our readiness, whether in Brussels or in national capitals. Negotiations of the European Defence Industry Programme, EDIP, are now entering a decisive phase. The European Parliament's position is clear. EDIP must be a long-term roadmap to rebuild Europe's defence industrial base and reduce our dependence on foreign suppliers, including from the US. We strongly oppose attempts to weaken eligibility rules for EU funding, attempts that would allow not EU missile and ammunition producers to benefit without sharing technology or building European capabilities or contributing to European jobs. EU money must serve European security. Member states remain free to procure foreign equipment from their national budget, but European taxpayers' money must strengthen Europe's industrial base. We also believe the current 1.5 billion proposed for EDIP falls far short of what is needed. Parliament is pushing for a much larger financial envelope because security requires real investment, not just declarations. Yesterday, the European Commission presented its proposal for the next MFF, the multi-annual financial framework, which will shape Europe's priorities for the years ahead. We will need to analyze it closely and delve deeper to fully understand its implications. One thing, however, it's already clear, defense must be seen as an intrinsically linked to all other expenditures with this MFF if we are to protect our democracy and values. This must be done with full transparency towards our citizens. Every euro spent must serve the right purpose, and that includes safeguarding, not undermining the social investments that form the backbone of our European model. So the MFF must not just be a financial plan, but a blueprint for Europe's security, defense, and strategic autonomy, matching ambition with real resources. As you can see, these are not technical debates. They're a political choice about Europe's future, and we will contribute through our work in SEDE. In Europe, we have the economy, we have the technology, we have the people. What we must now demonstrate is political will. Our roadmap is ready. Now we must deliver. More joint procurement, smarter and faster industrial investment, stronger parliamentary oversight. This is not just about Ukraine. It's about Europe's ability to defend itself in an unpredictable, contested world. This context reminds us why the voice of our parliaments matters. A true Team Europe approach to defense must also include a strong parliamentary dimension. For more than 30 years, member states have largely pursued defense spending and capability development on their own. The era of fragmented national efforts, which have proven ineffective over the past 3 decades, must come to an end. Collective action is the only way forward. The European Parliament and national parliaments are key to making sure our member states work together and deliver for our citizens. Therefore, I have plans to convene the first interparliamentary meeting of Defense Committee in December, and I will advocate that Ukraine must be at the table. The suffering and courage of Ukrainians must serve to remind us why we must act decisively and responsible together in defense of our shared values. No more hesitation, no more political wishing. It's time for Europe to act with courage, unity, and political will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Strack-Zimmermann, for this comprehensive, very to the point speech. This is very much appreciated. I'd like to kickstart the discussion with a focus on SEDE, the Committee on Security and Defense that you chair. Could you describe briefly what has changed since SEDE has become a fully fledged legislative body?
It's a good question because I came to Europe 1 year ago. Sorry. It's a good question because I arrived in Brussels 1 year ago, and we started in September, so 9 months ago. And normally 9 months is enough to have a baby. So in Europe you need more time. But anyway, the big difference is, first of all, it was a subcommittee and worked together with the AFET, so with foreign policy. And my colleagues told me that they have discussions, but they have no possibility really to act. And when I was in Berlin as member of the parliament and the chair of the defense committee, I always realized that there was definitely a discussion in Europe to create a defense committee, full-fledged committee. Okay, but nothing happens. So when I arrived, I thought, okay, first of all, we have to create the SEDE. And of course, second, I want to be the chair of the SEDE. Yes, to be honest, it makes sense. And I know that, normally to talk about weapons, to talk about always about terrible things like war, people dying, everything is destroyed. Normally people are not, politicians are not so interested in to talk always in such terrible topics. Yes, I mean, of course, but the reality is that we could see 2014, what happens? And between 2014 and 2022, 12,000, 30,000 people died already. So to answer your question, the big difference is that, first of all, we created the full-fledged committee in December. We have 3 months, really a big discussion about the possibilities, because one thing is that we now are also responsible for a question of industry. And before questions of industry, I mean, we're talking about really much money. I mean, unbelievable. So that the ITRE, the industry committee, said, oh, come on, industry is industry. Even you produce shoes or weapons. But it's not a question for us how expensive it is. Our question is that, of course, if you are talking about weapons, and it's not only a question of tanks and frigates and airplanes, to defend our continent, it's a question to defend. We have a massive cyber attacks for years. So we need the right technology, not only the US one. So altogether, so now we are a part of the game. So we started on January. And the very important thing is that we have now the possibility to be part of the budget. So the first time that SEDE will be part of trialogue. I never did it before. It must be terrible. But the first meeting was okay. And the second one will come after holiday. That's a good news. But I think it's not so, I'm sure there are topics in the European Parliament. It's harder because everybody in the Commission and member of parliaments, we know that we have to act. It could be a little bit more complicated because the Council, there are 27 countries, and it's a little, it depends where you live. And you are from Lithuania. You just said that you grew up, even you are so young, but it's good for history to realize that 40 years ago, Lithuania and the Baltic states were still part of the Soviet Union. So to live there or to grow up there makes a difference. Or if you are in Finland with 1,500 kilometer border to Russia, if you compare living in Spain, I mean, there have also problems or challenges very close to the North African continent. But anyway, and this is a problem of Europe. We have not one unit foreign policy. It depends where you live, and it depends all on your geographical view. And so that's the reason why we have to explain a lot. And for many people, it was totally normal that Europe has to have a security committee and defense committee. But for us, it was really a big step creating, and you could invite me in 1 year, and maybe then I could tell you the big difference, but we could see it. But, for me, we started and we tried to manage it, and we did it.
Let me congratulate, actually, in transforming SEDE and being the first chairwoman of a fully fledged. It is historic. But also, I think you're very right when you say, it does matter to have a dedicated earmark, so to say, committee specifically for defense industry, for example, because it's the same with the Commission. You could ask, should really the Commission have a specifically earmarked portfolio for the Commissioner for Defense and Space? And I think it does matter and reflects the challenges and the reality in which we are. I would like to ask you, where does your committee have edge or advantage, or what would you in particular push when it comes to defense vis-a-vis the Commission and the member states?
Yeah, first of all, our job is not, we have NATO at the backbone of security. It's very important. We are not NATO 2.0. NATO has a plan for every country. It's a secret plan. So every country, member of NATO, 32 countries know what they have to do in case somebody will attack us. So every country knows it. And our job is to bring this together, to deliver. I try to explain the huge challenges to stop the national thinking, because no country in Europe, no country, even the countries which are not member of EU, like Norway, like Great Britain, for example, no country could protect their own people. That's a reality. And even neutral countries like Austria or Switzerland, forget it. They are lost in case of. So, I mean, it's logical. Together, we have really the power. And our job is, even the question you asked me about the commission. We have now a commissioner for the first time. He's responsible for common procurement and defense. He's from Lithuania, so that's good. But we have also the Vice President Virkkunen from Finland. She is responsible for cybersecurity. We have Kaja Kallas from Estonia. She is responsible for foreign policy. And you know, it's not a coincidence that all these are people coming from these countries who know what they're talking about. And I think Ursula von der Leyen, I mean, the truth is, she was responsible. She was a defense minister in Germany for 6 years. 6 years, it's a long time to be and still alive as a defense minister. So, it was hard for her in times because she has idea, but no money. And then she came to Europe, to the Commission. She has experience about these topics. And in this moment, it's really important. I mean, today she's in Greenland. Why is she in Greenland? Because maybe she feels very comfortable today, because after this invitation yesterday to talk about the budget, everybody was angry about the budget. Now she feels more comfortable and it's a little bit cool down there. But no, the reality is that this will be effect for our security also, to look what happens in Greenland. NATO did it for years. And I remember even in Bundestag, we have all so tiny little, but we have discussions. What happens there? The climate change everything, because now there's a possibility that there is a passage going from China, Russia to the northern coast of North America. And this is a huge topic for US, of course, but also for us. So this is, you know, another challenge. So Ursula von der Leyen is now there because she knows this very well, because it was even a discussion in Germany, what happens there. So we need really the global view. And it's not only Europe. And, you know, for me, it's funny, it's not the right word. I'm always astonished. The US, they said, Europe, you are responsible for Europe. That's a fact, and it's true. And they did it, they told us last 20 years. So you are responsible also, look what happens in the northern part of Africa, and you have to see what happens in the Middle East. So that is okay. But to say, and the United States is responsible for the Indo-Pacific, this is really, no. We all, the free democratic countries, are responsible for the whole world. I mean, the whole world, it's a big world. But anyway, because China, it's a huge player. And China is an observer of everything, what happens here. Do we only talk about peace? Yes, and to be free and everything will be fine? Or do we are able to protect our values, to protect our countries? So China is really looking what happens in Europe, and the foreign minister of China 2 weeks ago, he said very clear, Russia doesn't, or it would be terrible if Russia lost this war. It was really clear. So we have to know that they will see what happens in Europe. And so Europe has to realize and to look for, or to see what happens in the Indo-Pacific.
Since you quoted now the foreign minister of China, who indeed said that China cannot afford Russia's defeat in Ukraine. But if you let that sink in, it means that it's a direct encouragement of Russia to do even more in Europe because China would support it. And then if you keep US busy in Europe, if you keep Europeans busy in Europe, if you keep Ukrainians busy in Europe, China, sits back and has and is just waiting, to see what's going to happen, and no one is interfering in its theater. I think it's one of the biggest expressions of support to Russia's war in Ukraine by China. And I just wondered, Europe has already sanctioned a couple of Chinese companies because of sanctions circumvention, for example. But we are really waiting for America, again, talking about European responsibilities or America's. We're really waiting for America to make the move with, Lindsey Graham and with secondary sanctions. Why? Yeah.
I say, it's a very simple thing. We could do it, but all our companies in Europe, not only in Germany, and we have a huge, the trade between Europe and China is immense. We sell a lot, we buy a lot. And the thing will be, if you you have this discussion with China, there are many, many companies in Germany. I ask them, did you reduce a little bit your invest? It's not, it could be logical to do it. No, it's very important. Of course, it's a huge market. And that's the reason I think everybody's waiting for the United States.
But I wouldn't be Eastern European if I didn't say that. Didn't we say the same about Russia? Because we had a massive strategic dependence on Russia as well. 80% of our gas and oil. So just, you just prompted me thinking in that regard. And I wonder, do you think maybe if there was even more direct alignment between China and Russia in terms of, maybe more direct military partnership or cooperation, maybe then Europe would stand up more? Just wondered what your thoughts are.
Look, the last 30, 40 years, three things. We have cheap, very cheap energy from Russia. And for example, for Germany, it was very important because we have a big industry and we are an export nation. So we, first of all, then the huge market in China as export nations, very important. You can everything sell to China. I working 20 years for a publishing house. You can imagine how many books we sell. Of course, not German books. First, we translate it in Chinese, then we sell it. And after a while, the Chinese said, thank you very much, good idea. And did it by themselves, of course. So we stopped it. So, and the third thing, United States will protect us in case of a case. These are the three big, the three big things where our, of course, people working are busy, but these were the three soils for our success in Europe. And everything now changed. We stopped nearly Russian energy, nearly. We just have a big discussion because there are enough countries in Europe, Hungary, Austria, there are still buying gas in Russia. It has to stop immediately. It's unbelievable that Europe pay more, pay more for things. More money is coming from Europe to Russia than to Ukraine. Could it be? Yes, it could be. So I think that we have to explain that there is a possibility to become more independent. Again, we have the people, we have the money. If you compare it with, I mean, the GDP of Russia is less than Italian GDP.
Quoted by Chinese, underwritten by China very much. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I think to talk about China, we have to do it. Because we know that they are not so, not so brutal like Russia, but you could see the cyber attacks, 90% coming from China. You could see the influence of our minds, maybe not of our minds, but minds of young people who are always using TikTok. It's a Chinese platform, but it's not in China. This is really, really funny. And TikTok tries to explain the world in just one or two sentences, and this is also a tech. So anyway, we have to realize that the typical Western world, forget it. Now we have to work close together to Australia, to New Zealand, to Japan, to South Korea. We have to work much closer together in questions of trade with South America. They are waiting for us. Of course, they trade with China, but we could show them, and they know it, that, we are fair partners. China is not a fair partner. China is always, so, I mean, the world is a big one, and we need more trade, and we now are on the way for a trade contract with Indonesia, and also with okay, anyway, I think with I just forget it, but more and more
partnerships and with a focus on it. Thank you very much for sharing. So I'd like to turn to the war in Ukraine, and when I think of
Singapore.
Okay, thank you, fantastic. Indonesia and Singapore, there we go. When I think about, since 2014, but in particular since 2022, over the past 3 years and a half, much has changed in this war, Russia's war against Ukraine, but much has actually remained the same, if not worse. So, for example, Russia stands by its military objectives to destroy Ukraine. Russia stands by its demands for NATO to roll back to 1990s frontiers. Russia, despite the low military morale, despite all the economic slowdown, is still reconstituting militarily with the support of China too. Now, here in the West, Ukraine's NATO membership hopes have been somewhat dashed in The Hague. Ukraine's EU membership is in question due to a particular member state. We are still deliberating aid to Ukraine without, in my view, sustainable long-term strategy. And I really honestly do not understand at this point in time what is our objective in Ukraine, because it seems to me as if we are going one step forwards but two steps back, as if we go all in circles. What should be our priority?
Ask me. I mean, you're asking me immediately. Okay, there are rules. To become member of NATO, you live in peace. That's a fact. But of course, it's very important in the future that Ukraine became member of NATO. The thing is that everybody has to say yes. And the truth is that 2008, we have a discussion about that Ukraine will be a member of NATO. The United States says yes, and France and Germany said no. Now Germany say yes, and United States, and still France says no. And not only, I think Hungary, there are many. Anyway, there is an option, and I'm very optimistic because the truth is that we could now see this battlefield in Ukraine, and the battlefield we learned every day what happens there. It's the old-fashioned kind of war, like the First World War. And you have the warfare, you have the drones. I mean, a complete different kind of fighting. And so we could now see, it's terrible enough to see what could happen. And so I tell you, and I'm sure the next years we will learn from Ukraine what we can do. And it's very good that there are already companies in Ukraine working together, because you could see it immediately. And the speed of technological, yes, it's so speedy. You could see it nearly every week, something changed. And so we need Ukraine, and they need. So I'm optimistic. But the question will be, of course, that Ukraine will be a member of European Union. But the truth is, we have also the rules, and we have to. The Ukraine people who are working to become member, they have to realize that the questions of democratic values, anti-corruption, is still a very, very important moment to become. And it's, Ukraine has a lot to do. Even we are close friends, even we are fighting together in a kind of against Russian and Chinese and North Korea, but they have to do their job. But I'm optimistic. The world, now that everything is changing, and I'm sure that the moment will come that Ukraine will be member, of course, of EU, but also member of NATO.
Thank you for this. And looking a little bit ahead in this war, which is also so closely linked to our European defense and security, I mean, it's very likely that the war will continue 2025. It's very likely that this war will continue 2026. What has to change in order for the outcome, especially now also with the US posture changing, for the outcome of war to change? Where should the change come from? Should it come from Ukraine? Should it come from Europeans, from Americans, from what? There has to be a game changer in this process.
The game changer, nobody knows what the game changer is. Maybe if Putin dies suddenly, but even then, it would change something. But this is not realistic. So the situation is, and we have to realize that Putin has no will to stop it. We know he could do it immediately. He could say stop, and that's it. Because for him, it's very, very important to survive politically. Because the war, the aim that Ukraine is part of the Russian Empire, this is his opinion, and there is no doubt about it. Nothing changed, first of all, and that his industry, they produce only weapons or something what things you need to create weapons. So, however, he needs the war, and of course, there are many colleagues. We have to talk. We have to try find a way, diplomatic way. Yes, of course, there's no doubt about it. But realistic, Ukraine needs more support economically, in a humanitarian way. We have to support with weapons, because there is no doubt about it. If they are not strong enough, if they become weak, then Putin has time. And it's terrible, because many people ask me, okay, do you think this year it will end or next year? I have no idea. But when you see when you realize what happens the last months, how terrible it is, and it's interesting, because in the moment when Trump became president of the United States, and Trump says, okay, I will stop it in the war in 24 hours. Okay, maybe on Eastern, but anyway, from this moment, Putin, is more aggressive. It's really it's turning around into events. Yeah, and so we have to support Ukraine with everything. We have to do it. To make a long story short, and not one step before and two steps behind, because everything we have the discussion now, what we could do, we just talked about it 3 years ago. But okay, people was, I mean, we have always elections and people in government feel not very comfortable because you have to explain it to the public. But I mean, the public is not crazy. I mean, there are a few crazy people, but the majority realized absolutely what happens, and you have to tell them. It's interesting. Our defense minister in Germany, Mr. Pistorius, he is very popular from the first day. Now he's minister for 2.5 years. From the first moment, he told, we need more weapons, we need more weapons, we need more soldiers, we need more money for weapons. I mean, he is talking the whole day from really not sexy topics. And people know, it's always good if people know if you have an opinion.
Fully share, and this really hits home because indeed I think these are uncomfortable conversations, but this is why you have leaders, in order to take those risks and to talk and to prepare for your populations too, because you know you need them on board. And turning now to the role of Germany. Germany and German leadership is indispensable for the defense of Europe, and Germany has come a long way and is committing very significant human and financial resources in support of Ukraine, for the defense of Europe. And in this whole haste, you know, in this whole race of Europe to rearm, where do you see opportunity for Germany?
Okay, now I see definitely more opportunity with the new chancellor. It's not a question of government, because the last 3.5 years we were part of government and we were really interested in to do more. We have a discussion inside the government, but Chancellor Scholz was, he just, okay, he talked about the Zeitenwende, that's it. And this is not enough. Even if you compare Germany's help to if you compare it with other European countries, we are definitely in Europe #1 for the whole, for 3 years. So now the chancellor, we have a new one, and he's definitely, he is absolutely pro-European. He's interested in his first trip, the same day when he was inaugurated, or how to call it, yes. He traveled to Paris, same day to Warsaw, then 2 days after, all together with a British premier, traveled to Ukraine. I mean, it was really very clear. So I think now we have huge steps in Germany. It's 500 billion for military equipment, and another 500 billion about everything invested in infrastructure. Is it in English 1 trillion? Yeah, it sounds really terrible. I mean, it's a lot of money. So anyway, now it's time to lead. And the thing is that many politicians in Germany are not interested, because if you, for decades, if you say you want to lead, the word to lead or to be a leader was in Germany not possible. The leader is, you know, our history. Adolf Hitler was the leader. I mean, it was the term. So to lead, it was, okay, we will do everything for Europe. We pay for it, no doubt about it. But to lead, oh, come on. So it changed now, because every country in Europe is waiting for the leadership of Germany, together with France, together with Poland, for example, of course. And the reason is very simple. Germany is in the middle of Europe. Germany is the biggest country. Germany is, even with all our problems, the richest country. And so Germany has now to lead. And I'm sure that Merz and also Pistorius are ready to do. And if they are not ready to do, we will tell them that it's time. I mean, we are not so far away from Berlin, I promise. We will look for, but you know, it's time to do it, and everybody's waiting. And I talked to the Danish colleagues. Now Denmark is the chair of the council, responsible for the council, and they told me without Germany and Denmark, and we are really very close. We need Germany, and I think it's a great moment, and I think we could be a little bit proud, because with our history, that nobody is anxious about Germany, that everybody said, "Come on, you could help us." I mean, I'm 67 years old, so I grew up that everybody was really anxious about Germany, and I was studying in the 80s in Munich, and I have friends in Switzerland, Swiss friends, and we have discussions the whole night about the possibility that Germany become one state again. And all my Swiss friends said, never, never, ever. 2 German, it's enough. Never, ever. They was really anxious. And even after 1989, in France, in Netherlands, and the countries, they thought, okay, it's history now, but you'll never know. And, after 35 years, to tell the Germans to now you are the leader, I think it's really so. Yes, we are a democracy. We are really, yes, we have to do our job now.
Just to illustrate how appreciated Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans are, there's this popular saying now that we fear not rearm Germany, but we fear if Germany does not rearm. Which is the sense. It's fantastic, because that is indeed the feeling unitedly across Europe. And there is one thing. There's
in Poland, from the Peace Party.
Yeah,
and they are not so friendly with
German. Yeah. So that even more highlights the importance of the statement. And there's another thing that I would like to share, and you also refer to history, which is very important. You also share to, how this sits within German national context. But it's important also how this is perceived from Russia. And Germany plays an important role in Russian mentality and space. And the reason for that is because Russia knows very well that what you just outlined, Germany is the engine of European integration. And if Germany wanted, it could be a formidable military power in Europe. And another thing is that, Putin perceives that Germany in particular is vulnerable to the dirty tricks of Russians. And this is why if Germany turned around and led, that would be a major deterrent effect. I think it's important to keep in mind that Putin witnessed the fall of GDR. He witnessed the fall of Berlin Wall. He witnessed the disintegration of USSR, which he called the worst catastrophe, the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. So now I think with these revisionist imperial objectives in Ukraine, is just reconfirming, how indeed history is important. And this is why I think if Germany flipped, which is happening, but could also be faster, it would be a major deterrent effect.
And that's the reason why Russia always talking about this discussion about the Taurus, deliver or not deliver. I mean, it's ammunition and it's very effective, but it's not a game changer. But the discussion was so interesting, because even if you say, okay, now we will deliver it, you have immediately 1, 2, 3 seconds, Putin will say, don't do it. It's a red line, and then you are a part of the war and all this stupid tralala, because he tried to frighten people in our country. And they now in Russia, they started new school books. They started in kindergarten to tell again. 80 years ago, and now again, Germany will attack us. This is really, and there are many, many Russians who believe it. The old people, Russians, the Germans. And it's interesting because you could see the first tanks, which were used from the Russian army. They write with the Cyrillic letters, we go to Berlin. Put it real all over. And many people in Germany, oh God, what happens there? I mean, it's just let us go to Berlin. It's just to make us nervous. Yeah.
Intimidate and to scare people and
scare
society.
the people. And so,
of course,
the best is don't read it.
I absolutely enjoyed the discussion, but I have to open the floor because I know that probably there are many questions, because people probably would love to ask some questions. And I would like to open now the floor. We'll take two in one go, one from the floor and one here online. So those who are online, you're most welcome to put and type a question if in the Q&A if you have one. If not, I have many more questions, but it's an opportunity for you. So anyone, please raise your hand in the room and my colleague Ramil will approach you with a microphone.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Timon Ostermeyer from the Hans Seidel Foundation. I have one quick question because you alluded to it in your introductory remarks, in your keynote speech, and it has been the talk in Brussels now for months that we're always saying we need to strengthen our defense industrial base. We need to do more together. And I was wondering if you could maybe comment on the FCAS project, because in the recent days, no, I'm from Germany actually. Yeah. But I'm also I'm not only asking for your German perspective, also your European perspective, because your FCAS project, the Future Air Combat System, I mean, that could be a key project in European defense. And it's also got a signal effect, I think, in politics in Europe, how much the countries can do together if they pool their resources. And now we had the development that the French position is they want to have a bigger share of the cake. They would like to have 80% of the work share made in France of the future fighter jet, whereas the German industry, of course, which is also, well, the other part of that deal, feels pushed out. Yeah, so I was wondering if you could comment on that, not only from a German perspective, but also a European perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
Would you like to answer now, or shall we take another question? Okay, if you could use the microphone.
Excuse me. I could answer very quick, because FCAS, the Future Combat Air System, it's not only this system, it's also the main ground combat system. The idea that the lead of the systems, France in the FCAS and the Germans in the MGCS. And we have a lot of discussions in the German also security committee about this, because the idea is really great. It costs a lot. You know, the research and these are the weapons. They are ready in the 40s. And the thing is, it's a great idea. I think it's very important to continue. The truth is that there are many discussions between the industry. And normally, if you work together, it's 50-50. You share it. The risk and also the good things. And I think there is a problem, because always German people told me that it's too, how could I say, that France is interested not in 50% and 80%. And French people told me Germany is not fast enough. So it's not a political thing anymore. I mean, the industry has a chance and they have to find a solution. Otherwise, forget it. But it's true. It could be really the future. And the thing is, we just talked about Ukraine, that the development in this technical technical issues are so fast that the question will be, now it's dangerous what I'm talking, is it necessary anymore? Or do we fight in 10 years only with drones? I mean, it's just, I know it's not only the drones, but believe me, this kind of discussions are really not very fruitful, because you could see how fast things changed. So I hope we could work together in the future, both systems, FCAS and MGCS. I'm really, and I know that the Germans going forward. So I hope it happens, because it's a good idea. But it's not so easy, because also it's a question of money. And the difference is France has the industry and the government is involved in this kind of industry. In Germany, it's a private thing. And you could see, so it makes a difference.
Thank you very much. There are no questions online. Anyone else? Yes, please. There's a girl here and one
they switched off.
Could I just see if your microphone is on? It should
I
be
hope so.
up here.
Oh, it's on.
Good.
Hello, hello, hello. Ah, okay. Sorry.
Excellent.
So nobody could hear my answer. That's better.
No. I think they did. I think they
Oh,
did.
they
I think it
did.
was
Okay,
switched
but
on.
because industrial questions always terrible, you know. In 1 hour, so my colleagues are here. Happy afternoon when the telephone is ringing. What did she say? Stopping FCAS? No, it's okay. No, we don't stop anything. We are friends and we're looking forward working close together.
Thank you. Just if you could take just 2 more questions and that's it.
Yes,
So
okay.
please, the young lady here, followed by Madam behind. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. My name is Olga Kirillova. I'm a journalist at Telegraph UA Ukraine.
Journalist,
Yeah.
you could see all the problems. No.
Sorry. And of course,
No. Just joking.
I
No,
have a
sorry.
question on Ukraine. A few days ago, Trump announced the readiness to sell weapons to Europe, onto NATO, with the goal of further transferring of these weapons to Ukraine. So it's really interesting to know your opinion. Will this model work, given the fact that actually Europe is focusing on bolstering and strengthening its own defense industry and cut the dependence on American capabilities? So how to find a balance in all of this? Thank you.
Yes, a good question. First of all, it was for the first moment good news that Trump says, I deliver, because Ukraine needs everything. The second thing is that it's also good for Europe, even we have to pay for it, because Ukraine, it's part of Europe and it's not far away from us. And the third thing is that it's good for Trump because he has his deal and so on. I mean, we have to be really, easygoing and pragmatic. He has his deal and he could tell his voters, we help Ukraine, but we have a really good deal. And for the industry in the United States and wonderful and so on. So this is okay. Of course, we have to do it. We have to, the reality is we need the United States. There is no doubt about it. So now we have to buy it. But at the same time, in the next years, we have to become more independent. And the aim is that at least in the next 4 years, 70%, 65-70% will be European. Components, European, everything European. I think it's ambitious. We could do it. But we have to create a European market, European weapons, European benefit. But in between, we need the United States. I mean, I have colleagues and they told me we have to stop it immediately. And it's not possible. I mean, we could, but then thank you very much. Then not only Ukraine has problems, we too, that's the reality. So I think we could do both. And after a while, maybe we talk in 3-4 years, and then you could see the balance changed.
Thank you. And one final question here, the lady.
I am, is it on? I am Angela Kedaiten. I am from European Commission. I now have some my association, but it's in climate area. But for me, I would like to ask you about possibly new structures to put in place to strengthen European defense and space industry and increase security. For example, Bruegel, Gunther and Wolf, they advocate a lot for ARPA, for Advanced Research Projects Agency, to be put in place to finance, up-to-date technologies and forward-looking technologies in defense and space. So, and also he advocates for completely different layout of future, let's say, defense management on the
Who advocate?
Gunther and Wolf and Bruegel. So I've been to a few of these events. So, and I sent some of these speeches and papers to Commissioner Kubilius also for reading. So my question, what do you think about new agencies and structures to be put in place to strengthen defense industry? And also I was not reading very well yesterday's proposal for multi-annual framework. So can you comment a bit what expenditures are foreseen, let's say, for defense for next 7 years? Thank you.
Just very quickly to comment on the MFF, but the question linked to the think tank Bruegel. a possible new agency?
No, it been some name circulated. ARPA, Advanced Research Projects Agency, is launched on European level to finance forward-looking, innovative defense and space projects and different startups to strengthen, innovative capacity of defense industry.
Thank you very much. So a question on MFF, and there is a think tank, Bruegel, who is advocating that we need a new agency at European level for innovation, for defense and space and startups.
I mean, first of all, we have the EDA and this European Defense Agency. It's now really become more and more important, and because it's true, you need projects. You have to start with projects, finding countries working together step by step, and so you need this agency because otherwise you are lost. Because the governments are always interested that their own industry will be successful. And I understand the government, but if you think in a European way, it's a wrong way. And I remember when I was in German parliament, we have a discussion about German frigates, 5 or 6 we ordered. And we have huge industry in northern part of Germany, but also Netherlands is very important. So after a while, Netherlands, a little bit cheaper, however, faster. And the Germans were very angry about it. And I said, look, we are Europeans. If you have problems in Germany, they always said, we have to find a solution in Europe. It's a problem not only from. So now, for me, I tell you the truth, for me, it's not a question which country with industry. For me, it's only interesting the output. And if it's German or Italian or France, however, I think there is really to share the benefit. And so the EDA, I think it's the right moment. And they told me, the chair of EDA said, it's really important and they have really a lot to do because people realize there is the anchor of all this question.
Your initial reaction on MFF, and we finish.
MFF? Okay. The first reaction is there is more light than shadow. In question of defense is really interesting because there is definitely in the future more money for defense. Also, if you see the non-budget things, but of course we will have a discussion in the European Parliament. I mean, Ursula von der Leyen, she knows it, of course, and that it was the first moment. I think we have now discussions for the next 2 years, and very important in this is more flexibility, because it's a little bit strange for me coming from a national parliament. We have a budget for 1 year. To make a budget for 7 years, it's a little bit like in the Soviet Union, a 10 or 20 years plan, because we don't know what happens in 2, 3, or 4 years. So more flexibility, this is really good. And, to invest more in security and more in all the military mobility in all this question. So I think this is really good. And of course, if you ask my colleagues who are responsible for other topics, they are not so happy. So the next 2 years, we will discuss from the morning to the evening, 24 hours, 7 days. And I'm sure that in 2 years, it's a little bit different than now. But anyway, for me personally, it's more light than shadow.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And thank you for such candid, honest, and to the point discussion. Really appreciated that. And thank you all here online and in person. Really appreciate your time. And until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.